Hello and welcome to the Wheel of Crime podcast. This podcast is ran by two ladies who play games, mumble profanities, and laugh way too often. Also, this podcast does cover topics of sensitive nature, and as such, listener discretion is advised.
Hello, and welcome back to a slightly boozy episode of the Wheel of Crime podcast. And boozy by happen chance?
Yes.
Not planned.
No, not planned. This is a what do you call it? Spontaneous boozy episode.
It's true. And my name is Jen.
Oh yeah, I'm Emily, I guess.
Sometimes.
Today I am, yeah.
Exactly. Yes, it was a happen chance boozy episode, but you know what? I ain't complaining. It's been a long week, folks.
It sure has. I got back from a trip to about 20 full envelopes on my desk, and I was like, oh boy, what happened while I was gone?
Envelopes, like work stuff, or what?
Yeah, envelopes of work stuff, because one of our fellas likes to put all the stuff he wants to give me into an envelope on top of emailing me. So that my inbox also was like, you have like 700 unread emails. And I'm like looking at my desk and I'm like, this is not helpful.
Jesus.
I'm like, I'm having a bad time.
That's so funny. Yeah, work has been nuts lately for me. I'm not having a great time.
Yeah.
I cried twice this week, but that's fine.
It's
not in front of anyone, thankfully. Just alone, in solitude.
As one does. It's called purging the toxins, Jen.
It's true.
You're doing a hard reset.
I feel like if I don't cry at least once every show, then I haven't really experienced that show yet. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. You just gotta have it on your, like, your show bucket list or your show bingo card where it's like, cried in my car, cried in the closet, cried under my desk, cried at my desk.
I cried in the office when everyone else had gone home.
Cry in somebody else's office while they're still in there.
I've done that too.
See, that's what I'm saying. You just gotta ramp up the bingo card. You can call
That's true. I'm getting all the bingos.
Yeah, right?
If it's crying, I win them all.
If it's crying, I've already filled it. So then, I'm trying to think, what have you done outside of work then? Besides the crying and the working and the sleeping and the drinking, what have you done anything else that's like super cool and fun this week?
No, honestly, like this week has just been so work crazy that I've pretty much like worked, slept for like 4 hours and then gone back to work. But I did go to the Dinosaur Museum in Drumheller 2 weekends ago, so that was fun.
Hey, that is pretty fun. That's one of my favorite museums. Which, I mean, you knew that, but like,
I did know that, but yeah, it was fun. Always a good time. If you haven't been, recommend. How were the wine tours for you?
Yes, so I just got back from a bachelorette trip, and I was telling Jen that wine tours are actually a lot different than what I thought, because like, I don't know why I just never really like thought about it, but I was like, oh yeah, like you go and you drink wine and you get wasted and then you go home and then that's about it. But it's a little more than that. They do a lot of like history and like explaining like why they have the different kinds of wine and where they make them and why they make them and all these types of things, and or like how you're supposed to drink them, or like testing the wine, how you can test these different wines. And that was a lot of fun for me, but I'm also like a huge nerd. So I was like, maybe that's why I found that fun and why a lot of other people go and get white girl wasted. But yeah.
I mean, that would check out for me.
Right? You'd be like, I'm just here for specifically the white wine. Bring it to me now.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, that was my fun side, and now I'm back at my work desk weeping softly, thinking about wine tours. And yeah, no, that was basically my little week there.
Well, that is super duper fun. Should we spin our wheel of questions?
We absolutely should, but before I do, I'm gonna give a fun little crack into the microphone here to Christian this episode. You ready?
Oh, our boozy episode is about to be christened.
Ready? Okay, 1, 2. Ooh. I wish my back would do that. I'm fucking old.
Me too. I would
hers.
crack open my little cider. There you go.
Ooh.
That's it. Crack. I was already drinking it. Sorry, guys.
Oh, yeah.
If only you guys could see her. She's drinking straight from the wine bottle.
Listen,
it's amazing.
I learned years ago that there is no point in dirtying a glass when, like, a glass of wine is usually about, like, 1/3 of the bottle, right? So you can measure it out pretty easily on your own and then, like, go from there. Because otherwise, what's the point? You're just wasting glasses. And it's got a screw on top. You just plunk that bad boy back on if you don't want to drink it all.
I mean, life hack. You heard it here first.
Right? All right, let's spin this wheel of questions. I'll move the fertilizer.
Yeah, don't drink it.
I'll think about it. All right. So, if somebody made a doll to look like you, what would be its most identifying feature on it?
It's crushed spirits and tears streaming down its cheeks.
Its watery blue eyes, freshly crying.
Yeah, sounds right.
I was like waiting for you to say something like, "Oh, always with a teeny tiny wallet and and a nose ring." I don't know.
A teeny tiny wallet? Is that what you think about me? Is that like your first impression of me? You know what? It's so funny that you say that because you want to hear something hilarious that made me feel bad about myself?
Hit me, I'm ready.
So I have a friend who just started on the same show as me. Mm-hmm. And another person had like just started and introduced themselves. And I was like, "Oh yeah, you know her. You met her on this show." And she's like, "I don't remember her." And then like a couple minutes later, she's like, "Oh, is that Strong Perfume Lady?" And I was like, "I guess so." Like, and she's like, "Yeah, I can never remember people, so I like have identifiers that go with them." And I'm like, "Oh, like what was mine?"
Yeah, right. Like you're like, "I'm a little Snoopy. Tell me mine."
And she's like, "Yeah, I remembered you as Sunburn Girl." Because when we first met on a show, apparently they were all really concerned about me because I was standing out in the sun, no hat, tank top, like fully red, and I refused to put on sunscreen, and they were just like, "We're concerned about Jen, like she's gonna get heat stroke for sure."
I love you to bits, but that is so valid because even my mom will see you when you come down to visit and she's like, "Oh, Jen, are you feeling okay? You look like you got a little sun over the weekend." Okay, so your doll's gonna have a nose ring, a sunburn, and a teeny tiny wallet.
Why the teeny tiny wallet? Like,
because you hate bringing around a wallet. So I'm like imagining like if your doll's wearing an outfit, it's not a purse. You're not wearing a bag, so in your hand it's just gonna be like a teeny tiny wallet.
I mean, that's accurate. If I could only use Apple Pay ever again, that would be my preference.
Actually, I take it back. It's going to be a cell phone with the Apple Pay like front screen on it. Apple Wallet.
Okay, amazing. And a coffee in my hand, most likely.
Absolutely.
And a crushed spirit.
Oh, the crushed spirit, like, ties it all together. With everything else, they'd be like, "Oh, that's just, like, a girl." And then, like, once you add the crushed spirit in there, you're like, clearly that's Jen. It couldn't be anybody else.
Exactly. Well, what is your identifying feature for your doll?
Well, I used to think that, like, so for a long,
Bun on your
long
head?
time, yeah, bun on my head, which is funny because I cut my hair short and I still have one. Uh, so, like, probably that. And then, I guess nowadays, I really wear my fanny pack around a lot. So be that
You do.
with a giant pair of white running shoes and, I guess piercings and tattoos. Because lately, oh, and a big fat ass. Because lately I've only been hearing about tattoos in my butt. So that's gotta be it.
A fat ass. I'm weeping. I'm weeping.
I'm like sweating. That's so funny. But that's what I'm going off of. I've like mishmashed like how I see myself versus what I've heard from other people. So like we'll go with that.
Oh god, I'm like crying.
With like with like a coffee in one hand or like a iced chai latte, and in the other hand is just like a pair of jeans ripped in half.
Oh no. Your juicy ass ripped them at the seam.
They got in a fight.
Jesus.
Oh my god. Oh, okay, I gotta spin for the next question. All right. So, in your opinion, what's the most dangerous children's toy?
Probably anything with lead paint.
I mean, that's fair. I don't know. Do they make toys with lead paint? I think not. Not anymore, right?
Not anymore, but they definitely used to. And if you're not careful, you'll find them at the thrift store still.
Ooh, I never thought about that.
Same with dishes. A lot of like the cool antique dishes at the thrift store have lead in them.
I knew about that one because sometimes people bring those like Geiger counters or whatever to thrift stores, and it'll like light up near like the plates and the dishware.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, ooh. No, that's a good one. See, for me, I just think back to like how like when we were kids, there was things like Polly Pockets with like their chewable little clothes, and and like slime or like other stuff that kids would put in their mouth, or like those little stupid teeny tiny watch batteries they used to stick into everything, and then it would say like make sure your kid doesn't swallow the batteries. I feel like most things actually from our childhood were pretty dangerous for kids actually.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of those like old wooden playgrounds were also like, or apparently considered really dangerous. That's why they tore them all out.
Yeah, or even a lot of like old fun stuff at playgrounds, like tire swings and stuff, are considered to be too dangerous now.
Mm-hmm.
And then
It's true.
I was
In
gonna
our
say,
hometown.
No, I'm ready. What are you saying?
Oh, okay. I was gonna say in our hometown they used to have like a giant. I think it was a giant rocket that you could go inside and climb up to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to close the inside climbing part because a kid fell, and I don't remember if they died or something happened, or maybe it was a homeless person that fell and died. I don't really remember.
See, I could have seen that though.
Someone died.
That thing was fully made of metal is the thing. And I remember it like going there once, like right after it rained outside, and it was so slippery, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But no, I was gonna say that I just recently learned from one of my other siblings who Orbeez weren't around when we were kids, but they were around like when my siblings were kids. And apparently, if you eat Orbeez, you could possibly die, which is so weird for me because like that shit is everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's also really bad. Like, I know a lot of people were putting them in like down the drain, and then they're clogging up all the sewage systems and stuff.
Well, that's because they don't
like
they don't
expand,
really,
right?
Yeah,
in
and they
water.
don't really stop. It's not like they just like stop expanding at a point. They'll just keep going, which is why it's dangerous for people to eat them because they absorb like everything that's in your stomach and all your fluids and like cause intestinal blockages.
That's terrifying.
Can you imagine dying because you accidentally ate an Orby? How embarrassing.
You would have to have that on your tombstone. It would just be a legal requirement.
Yeah, death by Orbeez.
Death by idiot because they ate an Orby.
Death from being an idiot. See, I feel like lots of people die from being an idiot, but they're not allowed to have that on their tombstone.
But maybe they should.
All right, let's spin
for our... might be for the best.
Right? Let's spin for our next question. Do you still have any toys from your childhood that you keep with you?
I have a few stuffed animals in my, like, memory box that I have in my storage unit. And then I have, like, my childhood blanket also in said storage box. I'm, like, looking around. I'm like, I don't really think I have any other toys. I have a small... It's not really a toy. It's, like, this small, like, antique clock that I used to use as, like, a clock for my Barbies, but it's a pencil sharpener. I don't ever use it as a pencil sharpener, but I, like, have it on my counter.
For your Barbies?
For my Barbies, yes.
Yeah, no, I see, like, I was thinking about it, too, and I'm kind of in the same spot where, like, I have, like, a couple stuffies that I keep in my, like, memory box, but, like, as for, like, other things, like... Not, like, toys, but, like, I have my old, like, N64 still from when I was a kid, and, like... I don't know, I feel like that's pretty much it. Like, I've really held on to, like, games and, like, gaming consoles since I was a kid. That's, like, my thing, and stuffed animals, but not really, like, toys.
Yeah, I wasn't really into gaming as a kid, so I didn't really have anything like that. There was one game that I played on my brother's Xbox, The Simpsons Hit and Run, and I used to love that game. And then, like, my brother got rid of his Xbox or whatever. And then John and I bought an Xbox because he wanted to play some game on it. And they're, like, backwards compatible. So I was like, we gotta get Simpsons Hit and Run. And then I played it, like, one time. And I was like, yeah, this game is not...
It's just not as good as you remember, yeah. I get that, though.
I mean, it's fine, but, like, it wasn't, like, the epitome that I was, like, hyping it up to be in my head. I don't know.
No, I feel that. I've had a couple games like that, too, or, like, movies that you've watched where you're like, oh, I remember that. That was so good. And then you watch it again, or you play it again, or whatever, and you're like, maybe not. Or books. Actually, I have a lot of books from my childhood. I have, one
Same.
really, like, worn copy. Worn not from reading it, to be clear. Like, worn from, like, being carried with me from, like, house to house in my life. Of, like, it's called Black Beauty. And I was actually looking at when some of the stuff was printed the other day. My copy of Black Beauty is from 1934.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty old, and it's not my only one. I've got a couple other, like, older books that I've just, like, received at some point that I've been hanging on to since I was a kid. Like, an old copy of Snow White's one of them, too.
That's really cool. Yeah, I have an old storybook that my dad used to read me, from.
Cute.
To me from.
To me
But,
from.
yeah, I, like, on that topic, so... I was, like, obsessed with this, like, one House of Night series as, like, a, like, 12, 13-year-old.
A tween.
And I got it in my head that I was like, I want to reread these books because I remember them being so good.
Yeah.
So I bought the first one because I got rid of the series a long time ago. And I started rereading it the other day because Emily and I are taking a pause on our little communal book club.
Yes.
And so I needed, like, just an easy read.
Like a palate cleanser.
Oh my god. This book is, like, rough. It's hard to get through. Like,
I relate
there's
to
one
so
line
hard.
where it's like, she's like, and then she went on in her usual K babble, because her name's, like, Kayla or something, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ.
You're like, I think I'm gonna die. No, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I was also in a weird, like, fugue, like, not recently, but, like, I want to say, like, maybe a year ago now, and I was like, oh, I remember loving this book when I was a kid, or, like, a tween, right? And I was like, oh, I'm gonna reread it, and it was It wasn't Aragon, but it was like another one of those like magical. Oh, Septimus Heap. I used to read this book series called Septimus Heap, where basically it was kind of something similar. It's like a dude who's like the seventh son of his dad, who's also the seventh son of somebody, which makes him like magical or something. And he like does all these different adventures and stuff. And I remember it being like a series that I read like probably over and over again when I was like in that age group. So I was like, oh yeah, like I remember that. Like I should just read it and give it a shot, like that, and like Aragon. And it was not good. I was like, it's literally one of those books where like they're so thick, but like everything is like double spaced, and the writing is terrible. And I was like, my imagination must have been something else, because I remember this totally different.
I know. I've barely like dipped into this House of Night book. I'm gonna finish it because I'm committed now. But like, oof. I remember the writing being like so good, and now I'm like, it's so bad.
Right? All right. Should we get into our fourth and last question here?
Yeah, spin the wheel, my dude.
All right. So would you rather be a sailor, in the army, or a pilot if you had to pick one of the three?
Definitely a pilot.
Yeah?
The ocean scares me. I'm not fit, and I also don't do well with people telling me what to do. So I'm not gonna be cut out for the army. Probably any of these, but definitely not the army. Yeah, the ocean is scary, and flying planes sounds pretty cool.
Funny enough, my answer was also pilots, and for kind of similar reasons. I was like, being on like a like boat in the middle of the ocean with only the people around me to depend on sounds like an actual nightmare.
Yeah, it does not sound like my vibe at all.
Absolutely hell no. And then for army, I was like, because I did do my little stint with that army program I worked with. So with the army, I'm like, hey, I already know what kind of people go into the army is the thing. Like, I feel like I'd be fine with, like, the program requirements. It's just more, like, the overall vibes. I'm like, no thank you. Whereas being a pilot, I'm like, yeah, no, that actually sounds, like, pretty sick. I don't know if I would be allowed to fly a plane just because, like, my eyes are a little bit buggy, but, like, I could make that work. I can see all my colors.
That's fair. Yeah, same. I have no idea what your story is about. Russian dolls, maybe? Something about a doll in the army? Or a sailor doll? Or someone being put inside of a doll?
Okay.
The personality of a doll.
You are close-ish. So, I'm going to get into my description here.
Okay.
So, Robert the Doll is an allegedly haunted doll exhibited at the East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida, or was. I don't know if he's moved since then. Robert was once owned by a painter, author, and Key West resident named Robert Eugene Otto. Now, have you ever heard about Robert the Doll?
It sounds like kind of familiar, but like nothing is really ringing a bell here.
Okay, so remember how we covered Annabelle, and like everybody's pretty familiar with Annabelle because of the movie? So as far as like haunted dolls that are like notorious go, Robert is like up there with Annabelle as far as like paranormal community type stuff goes, for like how well known he is for his hauntings. So
right.
It's very exciting for me that you haven't really heard of him. Like, as I tell a story, you might like hear a couple things and be like, oh, I think I saw that on Facebook at some point. But I will just tell you the original story, and at the end you can tell me if you've heard of it, what you think of it, all that fun jazz.
All right, take her away, Em.
All right, so the story of Robert the Doll dates back to the early 1900s when a young boy named Eugene Robert Otto was given a one-of-a-kind handmade doll by a servant that worked for his parents in his home. Eugene, who everyone called Gene, named the doll Robert and quickly became attached to his new friend. So, I'm kind of doing this on the fly, but I'm just gonna send you a picture of what Robert the doll looks like.
Okay.
Now, like Annabelle, at least like you kind of like she's a Raggedy Ann doll, so it's like you've seen her before. But with Robert, he literally is one of a kind. Tell me what you think of him when you look at this picture.
Oh, God. He's scary.
He looks friendly.
I don't like he looks kind of, oh, what's that show called? He looks like like his face kind of looks like it's bubbled.
Yeah, a little bit. I half wonder if it's from age. He kind of looks like he has a potato head or something.
Yeah. He is definitely unique.
Unique for sure. So, the home where Eugene lived, which is now called the Artist's House, is located at 534 Eaton Street and was built between 1890 and 1898. It was here that Eugene was given Robert the doll, and where a friendship that lasted throughout his lifetime and beyond was forged. So, while he seemed like an ordinary cloth doll, it wasn't long before Robert was involved in strange and somewhat terrifying events. And the first hint that something was out of the ordinary was happening one night when Jean, who was only 10 years old, awoke to find Robert the doll sitting at the end of his bed staring at him. Moments later, his mother was awakened by his screams for help and the sounds of furniture being overturned in her son's bedroom. So Jean cried for help, begging his mother to rescue him, and when she was finally able to wrench the locked door open, she saw poor Jean curled up on his bed in fear, with his room in shambles, and Robert the doll was still sitting at the foot of his bed.
Well, that's fucking spooky.
Yeah, and it's not a good sign that that's like the start, where they're like, yeah, and this is how it started. It's like, oh, so it does get worse. And that was already pretty bad.
Don't love that. I'm not loving this situation for them.
No. So, Robert did it, were the only words that Jean could get out. And the same words he would later use many times throughout his childhood whenever something strange, mysterious, or destructive would happen afterwards.
Spooky. I don't like that.
Because, like, well, here's the thing. Imagine being a mother, okay? And you have, like, a 10-year-old kid who, like, has this doll, and then like, he's just, like, scared all the time. And he's like, Robert did it. Robert did it.
I would light Robert on fire.
Who knows? Maybe with what Robert's made out of, he's not that flammable. Maybe she tried. Maybe that's why he looks like that.
Garbage bin, then.
Garbage bin. Oh, God.
Bury him in holy ground.
Yeah, right? You go all Sam and Dean Winchester on it.
Literally.
Gotta go to the crossroads.
I'm pulling out the arsenal that I learned from Supernatural, and I'm using all of it at once.
The utility belt. We need the utility belt of holy water and holy salt.
Yeah, I gotta get the salt circle going. Demons can't get out of that, I think. Right. That was it, right?
I think so. It's been a while since I watched it, but that sounds right. So then, nobody knows for sure why or how this child's plaything could actually wreak havoc on a child's bedroom or anything at all, right? Because it's just a toy. Mm-hmm. But the weird and inexplicable did not stop happening after that one occurrence. Jean's parents would often hear their son upstairs talking to the doll and also getting a response back in a completely different voice. They then reported seeing the doll speak and witnessed the expression on the doll's face change. Giggling and sightings of Robert...
See, that's where I would draw the line. The fucking lighter fluid is out. The house is on fire with Robert torch, in it.
Right? Well, and it's weird for me, too, because it's like the parents are even noticing the expression change on its face. Like, it's pretty noticeable if a doll goes from smiling to, like, frowning. You know what I mean?
And Robert is still there. That boggles my mind.
Exactly.
The moment I noticed that doll, gone.
Out of here.
Never to be heard from again. Goodbye, Robert. You are no longer a part of the family.
Right. So then, giggling and sightings of Robert running up the steps or staring out the upstairs window were then also reported. Robert continued to live with Jean throughout his lifetime, and after Jean's parents died, he moved back into their home with his wife, Anne. Jean then decided the doll needed a room of its own and placed him in an upstairs room that had a window overlooking the street.
I'm sorry, but, like, did Jean's wife divorce him? Because that would be me after Robert gets his own room.
Well, Anne gets her piece in this, so just you wait. So, Anne felt uneasy with Robert in the house.
Yeah, same. I feel uneasy with him in the story.
You're like, I feel uneasy hearing about him, let alone sharing my house. Imagine marrying Imagine your husband though, like, brings this doll and you're like, oh, okay, like we all have childhood toys. Like, maybe he just really likes this one. He's like, no, he gets his own room upstairs. Also, he talks to me. I'd be like,
Here are the divorce papers. Please sign.
Get out of my house. Right? But, so Anne felt uneasy, and although she couldn't put her finger on it, she wanted Jean to lock the doll up in the attic where he couldn't do any harm to anybody. Which is valid. I feel like after your husband's, like, told you stories about this doll that he brought with him, and he's like, yeah, no, it's literally haunted and speaks to me at night and ruins my house. I feel like her locking in the attic is the least you could do.
That's like a mild response. I'm not joking when I say I would light the house on fire with Robert in it. That would be my genuine reaction.
Right? So then, Jean actually conceded, and as one would imagine, Robert the doll was not happy with being locked away. So soon, visitors to the home would hear footsteps in the attic, with the sound of somebody pacing back and forth and giggling.
I'm moving out immediately. Divorcing this man. He's done.
She's way
he can
more
marry the doll.
Gotta wet the palate. All right. So, devilish giggling. Love that. Hate that.
Hate it.
So then also neighborhood children reported seeing Robert watching them from the window in the upstairs bedroom.
Is he a predator? Is this a predator doll?
I literally imagine it, like, you know, like those spooky old movies where it's like the old woman in the upstairs window watching the kids in the street, but it's Robert the doll.
No! I would literally kill myself if I saw that doll watching me. I've had it. I'm done.
I've had enough. So the children would see him and told accounts of the doll mocking them as they would walk to school. Like, pretending as if he was also walking along with them, but through the window.
This doll is a predator. He's gonna, like, shove them into his white van with candy and puppies and then murder them.
Oh, probably. See, but that's what I mean, though. Like, everything about this is unsettling because it's also, like, not, like, outwardly menacing, but, like, very insidiously menacing. You know what I mean?
Especially when you look at his derpy-ass potato head. Like, I'm sorry. No.
Fucking roasting him. So...
Fuck you, Robert.
Right. So then eventually Jean heard about what was happening with the neighborhood kids. So then afterwards he went up to investigate the attic, knowing that he'd locked him in the attic, so there shouldn't be any way that he should be in an upstairs bedroom window anyways, because there's not supposed to be any doors or windows to the attic other than the one door. So he's like, yeah, there's no fucking way this doll's upstairs in the bedroom. But not Robert. Robert's probably not shocked because he's the one who's fucking doing all this bullshit. But Jean... But Jean opens up the door to the bedroom, and there Robert was, sitting in a rocking chair by the window. So Jean locked Robert back up in the attic after this several different times, and every single time he would find him sitting by the window in the same bedroom, in the same rocking chair.
And he's still in the house. Why?
Maybe he's scared to get rid of him, though. Like, at that point, I'd be worried that, like, if I got rid of him, like, would he do worse to me? Because at this point, like, he's more so just terrorizing, like, visitors. and like the children in the street, he hasn't done anything outwardly like terrible specifically to Jean other than when he was a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like he gives me bad vibes, and I feel like this is going worse places.
Well, I'll tell you something. Jean Otto died in 1974, and then a new owner moved into the house on Eaton Street, where their 10-year-old daughter was delighted to find Robert the doll in the attic.
See, notice how Anne doesn't stick around.
My
She's
theory,
like, I'm fucking out.
my
Thank
theory
God.
is the minute he passed away, she's like, fuck this house, fuck this doll, and goodbye.
Same.
Right? Well, it
The
was
most sane thing that's happened so far.
I literally would have been like, well, it is his, so like, they can have
it
each other.
belongs to the attic now. Goodbye, Robert.
Yeah, right? So now this 10-year-old girl's found him, though, and her delight soon ended when she started claiming to her parents that Robert was alive and was threatening to hurt her. So she often awoke in the middle of the night, screaming in fear, and told her parents that Robert had moved about in the room while she was sleeping.
That's fucking spooky.
The thought even of like having that experience where you're like sleeping in something that should not be moving, it was moving around your room, gives me actual goosebumps. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Why is no one lighting this doll on fire?
Well, she's also a kid too. They might be like, oh, she's just making it up, right? Like Jean's mom thought the same thing, right?
Yeah. Don't like it.
Uh-huh. So it wasn't long after this started to happen that then Robert the doll was given away. And today, like after all these experiences, he was then collected by this museum in East Martelloford, which I'm not sure if he's still there today or not. I couldn't really find anything. Where visitors from all over the world come to see him. So, there's like a thing though where people are like, oh, but like, was he actually possessed? Right? Because the only accounts really come from like family members in this case, right? And like the children in the street. So, many believe that the origin of Robert's evil lies in the one that actually originally gave him to Jean Otto, who was the servant who worked for Jean's parents. They believe that the woman was supposedly mistreated by her bosses, and to punish them, it is believed that she cursed the doll with either voodoo or black magic. But I say that lightly because especially in American history, that's something that comes up a lot where people like take something and they're like, oh, this servant cursed the doll with voodoo or black magic. And it's like, it usually has some sort of like racial bias to those statements.
Yeah.
So
It's
I
a
would take
prominent
that-
thing in Canadian culture too.
Yeah, I would take that particular part of what I just said with the tiniest grain of salt. But they do say that that might explain a lot of the mysterious and frightening experiences who have lived with Robert the doll if he was to have been cursed in some type of way prior to him being given, right?
Right.
But if so, wouldn't the haunting end then when the owners died? Nobody really knows for sure, but one thing does remain consistent. Robert the doll continues to taunt and scare people who come to view him, especially guests to the museum who come to take his photo. So many have reported that their cameras then become inoperable when they try to take a picture of him, only to then become working again once they leave the museum.
Interesting.
Right? So, Robert the doll sits inside a glass case, but that doesn't stop him from inflicting fear and discomfort on museum staff and visitors. Good for him, I guess. So, staff members report that Robert's facial expressions do change. They oftentimes hear giggling, and sometimes his hand will be up on the glass.
So he's a menace.
Exactly. So, according to legend, the doll has supernatural abilities that then allow for it to move, change its facial expressions, make these giggling sounds. But some other versions of the legend also claim that a young girl of Bahamian descent gave Otto the doll as a gift, or as a retaliation for wrongdoing. So this is kind of going back into what I said earlier, where we're dipping back into like the voodoo black magic thing. Which I know voodoo is a cultural practice, but like I said, it's kind of something that's been like misconstrued throughout history. And other stories also claim that the doll would create and move voodoo figurines around the room and was aware of what went on around him. Which, again, I would take with a grain of salt. But,
Yes.
let's see. Other legends also claim that the doll vanished for a time after Otto's house had changed ownership after his death. Or that young Otto triggered the doll's supernatural powers by accident after blaming his childhood mishaps on the doll. Like, almost like he had the doll, but it wasn't, like, sentient until he started, like, blaming it for things. And then all of a sudden it started to, like, respond to that and be like, well, I didn't do that. And that's why it has, like, kind of like a vengeful spirit attached to it.
That would make sense. I feel like I've heard a couple of theories like that before.
Yeah, right. And then, also according to local folklore, the doll has caused car accidents, broken bones, job loss, divorce, and a cornucopia of other misfortunes. And museum visitors supposedly experience post-visit misfortunes for failing to respect Robert.
I see. So I should not visit Robert because I've had enough bad luck for this lifetime.
Yes, so do not visit him, do not look at him, do not think of him, and do not disrespect him are like the big things that you should not be doing.
Done. He's been cleared from my memory.
Auto delete. But I will, so that's kind of it for like his like kind of like spooky or legendary background. But there have been some references made in pop culture that I was going to mention just in case people were like, oh, like where might I've heard of him before. So in one of them, the doll was exhibited at TAPSCon, which is a convention hosted by the Atlantic Paranormal Society held in Clearwater, Florida in May of 2008, marking the first time that it has left Key West, Florida in almost its 104 years of existence. In October 2015, the doll was taken to Las Vegas for a Travel Channel television program called Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum. The episode originally aired on April 2nd, 2016 as the first episode of Deadly Possessions and re-aired on August 12th, 2017 as the first episode of the series Ghost Adventures Artifacts. A horror film franchise loosely based on the legend began with the film Robert, which was released in 2015. To date, 4 sequels have followed: The Curse of Robert the Doll in 2016, The Toy Maker in 2017, The Revenge of Robert the Doll in 2018, and Robert Reborn in 2019.
I've heard of none of those movies, and I love horror films.
See, that's so surprising to me. I thought for sure something would have clued in when I started mentioning the movies and stuff, because you're really into, like, horror movies.
Nope, never heard of them now. I gotta look them up.
Guess so. You'll have to let me know how good they are, or bad they are, or if they respect them or not.
I feel like... I don't know. I have a feeling they might go one way, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. The doll and a replica doll are sold at a gift shop in Martello Museum, which also appears in the second season of Ozzy and Jack's World Detour. And lastly, the doll was featured in an episode of the podcast and TV series Lore.
So he's a pretty famous doll, is what you're trying to say.
He's got his name out there, that's for sure. And yeah, that is the end of my episode for you today. Did any of that stuff ring a bell for you? Like, have you ever heard of Robert the Doll before? Like, in passing somewhere?
I feel like I have, but like I didn't remember the story at all. But I feel like I've heard like Robert the Doll mentioned in the same vein as like Annabelle.
Yeah, because, like, as far as, like, doll hauntings go, like Annabelle and him are, like, the big kahunas, right? Like, there's definitely, like, a few other haunted dolls that people talk about, but, like, they're the most, like, noteworthy ones that people talk about. Which, to me, like, Robert definitely checks out. Like, once you see a picture of him, you're like, oh, I think I'm good.
Mr. Potato Head,
well,
no
and
thank
he's
you.
also carrying like a little weird stuffed pooch with him, which kind of just looks like a pom-pom now. So I don't know if it was a pet at some point or not, but either way, I'm good. I don't need to know more.
It's spooky, and I will not be visiting him or taking his picture.
I'm good. He can have his space, I can have my space, and we can continue to exist on completely different ends of the world. I am very happy with that.
Exactly. Different ends of the astral plane,
Exactly.
if you will.
And with that, that brings us to the end of today's episode. If you liked it, be sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast. It's all greatly appreciated. Helps us reach out to new listeners. And beyond that, we have our website, which is www.wheelofcrime.com. If you want to check us out on there, we have our social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, all at Wheel of Crime Podcast. If you want to send us in an email, say you got any comments about the show or something you want to say or something you think would be you want to hear, you can always email us there, which is wheelofcrime@gmail.com. We have our Patreon, which is Wheel of Crime on Patreon, I believe, or Wheel of Crime Podcast. And that's if you want to donate to the show or check us out on yet another platform. And beyond that, we are still taking in listener episodes. I know I've been a broken record saying it every single week, but if you guys want to submit a little bit something of your own, maybe you know somebody who owns a cursed object or a haunted doll or a haunted painting or something, we would love to hear about it. Feel free to submit a story to us on I believe it's on our Facebook and Instagram, like our social media. We have a Google Doc up there if you wanna put it in there. And I believe that is everything.
That's it. That's all. We'll see you next week for another new episode. Okay, bye.
Bye.